Welcome back to The Real P3, where passion, purpose, and progress come together in animal nutrition. We're not just talking pigs anymore. This is the new era of The Real P3, pigs, poultry, and pets. Join our host, Casey Bradley, Animistic's powerhouse team of animal nutrition and health experts as they dive deep into the science and heart behind animal and pet nutrition and health. From commercial swine systems to backyard chicken flocks, from champion show pigs to your favorite couch-loving golden retriever, we're covering it all. Expect real stories, real science, and real solutions for those who feed, nurture, and innovate across species. Because here at The Real P3, we're faithfully serving through science plus heart. Subscribe now and come thrive with us.
My name is David Eisenberg. I'm president of Microtracers Incorporated. My father founded Microtracers Incorporated in 1961 as a corporation. He first had the idea to make analytical tracers for animal feeds in 1955. His beginning of his career was starting a small bakery laboratory for bread and cookies in 1943. He was put into business by Otto Richter Baking Company, San Antonio, Texas. Otto wanted my dad to move to San Antonio to set up a laboratory. And my dad said, no, he wouldn't do that. But if Otto would send his samples to San Francisco, my dad would set up a laboratory. And Otto said yes. And my dad borrowed $1,500 from my mother. And that was the beginning of our business. The Analytical Laboratories continues to this day. And under the leadership of my son and daughter, Zachary and Amanda Eisenberg, it now employs about 100 people. And the Microtracer business, is still my focus. And that employs maybe another 15 people. We do our work in the animal feed industry all over the world, but we've also developed a line of tracers to code human drugs, pills, tablets, capsules as authentic. And we're trying very hard to get that project off the ground too. And it's been a great fun adventure for me. I've been in 46 of the 50 states. I joined my dad 51 years ago to promote the idea of the Microtracers for the formula feeds. And it's been a great adventure for me. I traveled all over the United States and then all over the world.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize the big history of this. I came to the party late of learning about Microtracers then. So.
Well, no, you're just in time.
So I kind of, based on that, I guess, for the audience who's doesn't really know what we're talking about, Microtracers are used for a lot of different things. Can you kind of explain the purpose, what they are and how they're used in animal feed, and then, like you said, even human drugs, and kind of walk the audience through the purpose of Microtracers?
Well, my dad was an inventor, and the first Microtracers that he made were simply sodium chloride particles colored with food dyes, but they dissolved in pelleting, so they had limited value. Then he filed a food additive petition with U.S. Food and Drug Administration and gained approval for Microtracers G, which were colored graphite particles that held onto the dye and could be found in pelleted feed. And then he had the idea to color iron particles, which could be isolated from feeds instead of the more complicated sedimentation procedure applicable to the salt and the graphite tracers. The iron tracers could be isolated from feeds by magnetic separation, and that made it practical for them to be used even by a truck driver when loading feed into a truck or at a farm. And that is about when I became involved. The major first impetus for using Microtracers in 1955 was to code nicarbazine into poultry feeds, because if nicarbazine got into a breeder feed, it could be very harmful. And one major poultry company considered that to be a problem, and that was the first use of Microtracers, really. But in connection with that, the food additive petition, my father, working with a guy by the name of Mr. Melvin Midgley of Carnation Albers, had to generate extensive data on efficacy, that the Microtracers could be very useful in validating mixing of feeds. And so my dad and and Mr. Midgley visited many of the Carnation Alber's 17 feed mills, and they ran mixture studies working with the graphite tracers, generated data, and that was used and submitted to the Food and Drug. And that brought my dad to the need to have a basic understanding of Poisson particle statistics. And we utilize the Poisson particle statistics to this day, so that the tracers are used widely around the world to validate and to optimize mixing procedures at feed mills, because if you can optimize your mixing procedures, you can maybe save time, increase your batch sizes, or minimize your energy usage, and in some cases increase your plant capacity. And there have been cases where people utilize microtracers, testing hundreds of samples to generate data and making engineering changes along the way. And as a result, we're able to avoid spending, in one case, $7 million to build another pet food plant, because they were able to increase the capacity at their existing plant.
That's really cool. Some of the other uses for it is obviously on the pharmaceutical side that you touched on from the beginning. And I heard there's a lot of companies got their own unique colors. So what is the purpose of having unique colors in microtracers for different products?
Well, oftentimes the tracer will serve two purposes. It will serve a value-added purpose to the feed manufacturer to be able to test for the coated feed product, oftentimes a coccidiostat, or it could be a complex mineral or other feed product, because there may be toxicity or drug residue issues if the drug gets into the finisher feed for the intended species. But oftentimes the tracer serves a second purpose, which is to code the feed product and feeds containing it as proprietary to protect patent and distribution rights. One simple case is the case of Elanco in Mexico, where they make monensin sodium for cattle under the trade name Rumensin, and for chicken under the code name Coban. But due to market conditions, Coban sells for a lower price than Rumensin. So there's a temptation on the part of feed manufacturers to buy the lower priced Coban and feed it to their cows. So Elanco utilizes the tracer in that case for two reasons. The monensin sodium will kill horses, so they promote the benefit of testing for the tracer in horse feeds, while also concurrently everybody knows that there's tracer in the Rumensin and no tracer in the Coban, so it reduces the likelihood that they're going to cheat and use the Coban.
Yeah, I don't think it was the Coban versus the Rumensin, but I was hanging out with the Elanco guys, and they came out with a kit that the producers could have to easily detect I think it was palmitil in the diet, for instance, to pull that out and test their feed to make sure it's not going to the wrong group and stuff very easily. And so they came up with a device to test for that, to make sure there's no contamination or risk from, not a food safety concern ultimately. And they were kind of promoting, that, and then, getting to know that they have the special bright pink, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll take red and blue, but I would rather have pink, but kind of, you touched on mixer, Go ahead. Sorry, Dave.
We make all the detection. We make all the detection apparatus, because obviously the tracers have no value if you don't have a way to test for them.
Yeah, and I mean, I've used them on my research feeds to where we just use a jar with a magnet on it and then spray some water on it to see if we have the right feed and the right feeders. And that's kind of how I've used them in my career.
Yep, that's a good use.
You touched on mixer uniformity. Kind of walk us through, how would you implement a mixer uniformity test with these microtracers? I'm used to using salt. As we all know, lab variation between different labs for salt is very difficult and challenging. It's very variable. But how would you implement microtracers to do a mixer uniformity test in a mill?
Well, oftentimes, if a feed manufacturer contacts Microtracers, I will suggest to them that we will either sell them or give them small quantities of Microtracer that they can add into their feeds, and I'll provide some advice on where and how they should add the tracer and where and how they should take samples. And then they'll just take the samples and ship them to San Francisco, and we'll run the analyses and generate a report with the data and the all the statistics and charts and interpretation of the results eventually as to whether the data evidences a complete mix or whether it does not, whether it evidences an incomplete mix. And there are a lot of related issues to that. You know, Kansas State University years ago ran trials where they fed broiler chicken, broiler chicks, perfectly mixed feed and badly mixed feed and terribly mixed feed. And the chicks that got the terribly mixed feed mostly died, I think. And so there was a negative impact if the mixing was bad enough. But Kansas State also did trials of pig feeds, and they found that for young pigs, baby pigs, mixing was important. Consistency in the feed was very important. But for the adult pigs, you didn't have to do any mixing at all. Just feed them whatever you fed them, and it would probably not have much of a negative impact. So this is something that I don't think anybody really appreciates in the industry. If you're really trying to optimize your procedures, and if you have the capability at the feed mill, you want to make sure your baby chick feed and your baby pig feed is mixed right, and the other feed maybe you don't have to worry about so much.
No, I definitely agree.
Mark is saying I should talk about the. Okay.
Go ahead. No. What does he want you to talk about?
Mark is saying I should talk briefly about the interpretation of data.
Yeah, I was going to get you to that.
The interpretation of mixer testing data, because salt and minerals and amino acids are all utilized to validate mixing, and the data is interpreted using the normal statistics where you find a coefficient of variation, and you, in most cases, set an arbitrary criteria as to what coefficient of variation is acceptable. Many people have set a criteria 5% coefficient of variation for premixes and 10% for final feeds, but that really is arbitrary and capricious. You need to use the Gaussian statistic to generate data, which can then be utilized to set acceptance rejection criteria for data based on the normal statistics. But no one does this because it's too much work. The microtraces, on the other hand, are interpreted using the Poisson particle statistic, which is very simple and it's objective, and every statistician in the world agrees that it's correct. However, it's not intuitive. The core of the Poisson statistic is a count has an inherent standard deviation equal to its square root. So if you count 100 particles per sample in a mixer study, and your mixing is dead on perfect, and you took an infinite number of samples, you'd get a standard deviation of 10, and thereby a coefficient of variation of 10%. You're not going to get 5%. It would be impossible. It wouldn't happen. If you want 5% CV, you have to count 400 particles per sample. Then the standard deviation is the square root of 400 or 20, and therefore your coefficient of variation would be 5%. And we actually have some customers over in Europe who do that. But we make a special super high count microtracer to allow that to work. And Microtracers has business all over the world, and we try to satisfy the perceived requirements of different markets. So Germany, historically, for premixes, wanted to use a tracer added to the feeds at 10 grams per metric ton, 10 ppm, and they wanted to achieve a 5% CV for the results. And so we make a super high count tracer, which yields tiny pinprick spots that you can count under bright sunlight, but I don't want to count 400 tiny pinprick spots. But we have an associated business, Microtracers Services Europe, that worked with a German university to develop software for counting all these spots automatically. And the automated counts are within 1% of our hand-eye counts, so it does a beautiful job. So it can be done. But is there any great advantage of that? I don't think so. But the advantage is that the Germans are happy, and that's all I care about.
I was going to say, counting little cell counts was torturous enough in my master's degree, let alone counting dye dots on a piece of paper. How would you utilize?
Well, you get to the issue. Is it more important? You get to a statistical issue. I'm sorry. It's a statistical question. Is it more important to get a lower CV by counting more particles or to take more samples? And it's not intuitive, but I can send you a 23-page report. It's much better to take more samples. Okay.
I think anybody would agree in statistics. More replication is better. So, how would you, talking to a new animal nutrition researcher out there, how would you talk to them about utilizing microtracers in their research and how that's a value add or helps them become more precise with their research program?
Well, a first step would be to validate the mixing at the research feed mill to make sure the mixing is correct, because that seems like an obvious basic requirement for the research. And I'm not sure that that many universities actually do that. A related issue is validating cross-contamination controls. And if the microtracers are a very powerful tool to validate mixing, they're even better for checking for cross-contamination. But at research facilities, we mostly sell colored corncob grits, red, blue, green, which you can see visually by picking up a handful of feed. And that is used oftentimes as a tool to minimize the likelihood of making feeding errors in a feeding trial. And the colored corncob grits survive digestion, so if necessary, you can test for them in the feces of the animal. So, for example, if you run a research trial and you get results that you did not expect, and you think that maybe an error occurred in the feeding, it's a way of testing for it.
Interesting. Now, can you do that? I was going to ask you that with the microtracers themselves. Can you use that as well to do analysis on feces, or would it only be the corncob version?
No, the microtracers the dye will dissolve in the digestion of the tracers will go through the animal and come out in the feces, and the dye will be lost.
Okay. So is any last minute thoughts for our audience on the value of microtracers in animal nutrition?
Well, the greatest benefit of the microtracers is you can get immediate results. So whether you're loading feed into, if you're in a feed mill making both turkey and poultry and chicken feed, you can test every truckload of the turkey feed for a trace and isin to be sure back to the feed. And then in the issue of mixer validation testing, you can run the trials if necessary at the feed mill, or at any event, you can get the results very quickly, much quicker than if you're running amino acid analyses, for example. And what else? Something else I was thinking about. I can't think of, just not coming to my mind right now.
Well, obviously, I was really impressed with
Mark,
the
you have any thoughts you can add on? Oh, did you use the app? That's great. Yeah, we have the automated spot counting apps for iPhone and Android. And also that can be linked to our web portal. So you can scan and count 10 or 20 filter papers with colored spots and have that data transferred automatically to a mixer validation report, and all utilizing the web portal. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about was verification of mixing. We talked about validating the mixing process, but if you include a microtracer in a vitamin premix, for example, or even if you're using Elanco Rumensin, which has a microtracer, or Fibro nicarbazine or Mecadox, if you test one sample of your feed every day, taken from a truckload or whatever, and you get your counts, you can enter the counts at the web portal into the tracking section of the web portal, and you can generate a charts and graphs of the counts over a period of weeks or months or years, and you can see trends as to whether the average counts are going up or going down, or if they're becoming more variable. And this is a way you can verify the quality of your mixing every day.
No, I love it. And I have not. It's on my agenda.
Mark is saying visit our website.
No, yeah, visit our website for sure. We'll get there. But I mean, I have my box. I'm gonna practice it hopefully next week. It is on my list to do over the holiday, and maybe do a fun project with my son while he's off of working with me on it. But if people are interested in getting microtracers, how can they reach out to you to get more information?
Send me an email, and I'd be pleased to sell them whatever they want to buy.
All right. Well, we'll put that
and also try to provide some technical support to make sure they're not wasting their time.
Yep. But we will put in the show notes the website, and we'll have some videos that we're going to create of us using it. And as we launch our new research program and services next year called AssureMix. So we're really excited to be partnering with Microtracers and getting your support. And we look forward to working with you guys more. And I know I'll be calling Mark. I'll be like, I need help on this. So I really appreciate your time today, Dave. And
do you have a rotary detector in your laboratory?
I just bought it. Yes.
Oh, they ordered one.
Yep.
Okay. If you do not have a rotary detector, I can get you one. Okay.
Oh, I have one. So
and
we have one.
You undoubtedly will have questions as you move along.
Oh, definitely.
And Mark and I will try to respond to them and do what we can to try to make sure that you spend your time wisely.
Exactly. That's my goal. Be wise with my time.
Can you tell me a little bit more about your company? Can you tell me a little bit more about your company?
Yeah. So Animistic is a animal nutrition consulting firm. We do a lot of products and market development. So within that, we'll do research. And so obviously in my career, I've been a researcher for a large majority of that. So we do conduct different research trials for poultry, swine primarily, and we'll help people develop nutritional solutions for that market. And then we also work in the pet space. So we do prototype mixing. So we have, we're going to incorporate microtracers into, validating our mixer rates. We're looking to expand and having more manufacturing to help versus a lab scale. But yeah, we do a little bit of everything, as we tell people, technical sales, formulation for producers, new feed additive development, technical marketing. We do my passion project is outreach and education. So I do a lot of content creation, including this podcast, and really wanted to focus on having you guys on there because it's a necessary part of our industry that doesn't get talked about a lot. And we wanted to make sure people were aware of microtracers and the value of it and how we utilize that in animal nutrition.
Do you have research? Do you have research animals?
I have partners who have research animals. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, a rather unrelated issue that you probably have no interest in is the issue of selenium addition to animal feeds, because that was a major part of our business in the early years when I joined my father. And sodium selenate is overlooked. And we published various research where sodium selenate is totally stable in acid-based liquid feeds, where sodium selenite is highly reactive. And a lot of people utilize organic selenium, which costs a much higher price than sodium selenite or sodium selenate. And we believe that you could get half the benefit or more of the organic selenium by simply spending an extra 1 cent a ton and using sodium selenate instead of sodium selenite. So I could see positive information on that if you were interested, but there used to be a picture in our lunch saying Dave Eisenberg, selenium is his life.
And you would be, to note, I do use a 50-50 blend of inorganic and organic selenium.
You're using half selenite and you're using half organic selenium, correct?
Yes, that's how I would formulate my diets. Yes.
Doctor? Well, I can send you some sodium selenate if you want to play with it.
My PhD
in Atlanta
was
the end of January.
So I looked at inorganic and organic trace minerals in sow longevity.
Oh, okay.
But no, I really, you need to.
Well, I may send you an article. I may send you an article
No,
or
that'd
two,
be great.
whether or not you want it. Okay.
Yeah. But I appreciate your time and thank you for being on our podcast.
We'll be in Atlanta for the poultry show.
I will be there. Yeah. Are you going to be there?
Okay. We have a booth, A1411.
All right. We'll come find you.
A1411.
All right. We'll see you there.
And I'm looking for someone who might be able to join our group for dinner Wednesday night. So if you have nothing else going on, let us know, okay?
I will. That sounds great. So, all right. Have a blessed day.
Let's make the world a better place.
Exactly. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you much.